Hey guys, it's that time of the year again, and we are about ready to review for our big exam. So the first question's asking us to classify as one, none, or infinite solutions, and if it is a one solution, make sure you solve them. So before we even start to do this, just a little refresher. Remember, if it's a one solution, and you might want to write this down at the top of your paper, if it's a one solution, you will always have a different coefficient. So once you start solving it, simplifying it, and you see you have two different coefficients, it's always a one solution. If we have an infinite solution, if it's an infinite solution, it's going to have the same everything, the same coefficient, the same constant, and that means you have the same equation basically. And lastly, if we have a no solution, if you would start to simplify it, you would have the same coefficient. However, you would have a different constant. That's the difference between infinite and no solution. Infinite has the same constant as well. No solution means you have a different constant. So let's get started. For this first one, if I start to simplify, I would distribute. That would give me 3x minus 3 equals 2x plus 9. Right from there, I know that it is a one solution because I have two different coefficients, so I can start to solve this. Going back to what we did with our previous unit, I would subtract 2x from both sides. 1x minus 3 equals 9. I would add 3 to both sides to give me 1x equals 12, and I would divide both sides by 1, so in this case x equals 12. Do you see how I have my one solution right there? So for the first one we had one solution. If we continue, if I combine my like terms, 2x minus x, or 2x minus 1x is 1x, or just x plus 7. On the other side, I have x plus 3 plus 4 is 7 as well. It is the same equation, same constant, same coefficient, so this would be classified as infinite solutions, and I'm just abbreviating. We keep going down here. 4x plus 2x, I have 6x plus 2. And 3x minus 7. I have two different coefficients, so that means it's a one solution, so I can start to solve this. I would subtract 3x from both sides to give you 3x plus 2 equals negative 7. Then I would subtract 2 from both sides to give me 3x equals negative 9. Divide both sides by 3. So in this case, x equals negative 3. It is one solution. As always, I will distribute. If I do that correctly, I would have 4x minus 4 equals half x, or 0.5x minus 4. Once again, I have two different coefficients, so I am going to start to solve this because it would be a one solution. So if I subtract 0.5x from both sides, I would get 3.5x minus 4 equals a negative 4. Remember, always bring down this sign if it's a negative with it. I would add 4 to both sides to give me 3.5x equals 0. And then I would divide both sides by 3.5 to give me x equals 0. And it is indeed one solution. If we start to do this one, on the left hand side I cannot combine anything, so I have 10 plus x. On the right hand side, if I distribute 5, 5 times 1/5 would just give me 1x, or just x, plus 5 times 2 is 10. Do you see how I have the same coefficient, the same constant, and rightfully so I have the same equation. So this would be an infinite solution. I'm just abbreviating IS for infinite solution. On the next problem, I see I have a fraction and my denominator is 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that fraction by multiplying every single term by 2. That would give me 6 plus 3x plus 8 equals 8x minus 5x. If I start to combine my like terms, I would have 3x.
Kathy walked in.
Sorry for that interruption. 3x plus 14 equals 3x. Now I could see that I have the same coefficient, but a different constant. I have a 14 and I don't have one over here, which technically classifies that as 0. So if that's the case, this would be a no solution. Alright, over here, let's start to distribute. 4x plus 1 equals 4x plus 6. I have the same coefficient, but different constants. That would classify it as no solution. Once again, let's combine our like terms. So x plus 5x would give me 6x plus 4 equals, if I distribute, 6x minus 3. I have the same coefficient but different constants. That would mean no solution. On the left-hand side, I cannot combine anything. On the right-hand side, if I distribute, I would have 3x minus 3. Bring down your plus 4. If I combine my like terms over here, I would have 3x plus 1 equals 3x, and then negative 3 plus 4 is a positive 1. Same coefficient, same constant. That makes it an infinite solution because it's the exact same equation. If I distribute, I would have negative 2x minus 2 equals 2x minus 2. Now, a lot of you might want to say that this is a no solution, or that it is infinite solution because you're getting your rows confused. However, this is a 1 solution because I have a negative 2 and a positive 2 coefficient. They are different numbers. That's why it is 1 solution. So you're going to have to start to solve. So I would add 2x to both sides to give me negative 2 equals 4x minus 2. I would then add 2 to give me 0 equals 4x, and I would divide both sides by 4 to give me x equals 0, or 0 equals x, which classifies it as a 1 solution. Alright, next one, if I distribute, I would have 6x plus 6, bring down your plus 5. 13 minus 2 is 11 plus 6x. If I combine my constants, I would have 6x plus 11. On the other side, I have 11 plus 6x. I have the same coefficient. I have the same constant. That is why it's an infinite solution, because no matter what value you plug in, it'll work because the equations are the same. Lastly, if I distribute, I would have 1 minus 2x plus 2x equals 13. Well, negative 2x plus 2x would give you 0, so all I have left is 1 equal 13. Does 1 equal 13? No, that's why it's a no solution. Alright, here we go with solving the proportions. Remember, when you get to this step, all you're going to do is cross multiply. So I would have 6 times the quantity x plus 4 equals negative 2 times the quantity 5x minus 1. So if I distribute, I have 6x plus 24 equals negative 10x plus 2, because a negative 2 times a negative 1 is a positive 2. I'm going to add 10x to both sides because remember I like to get rid of my smaller coefficient. 16x plus 24 equals 2. I would subtract 24 because I'm getting rid of my constant to give me 16x equals negative 22. To get x by itself, I divide 16 by both sides. And negative 22 divided by 16 would give me negative 1.375. Just to point out, it wouldn't have mattered if you put this negative 2 times the quantity 5x minus 1 over here. That doesn't matter as long as you are setting it up appropriately. Next problem, if I cross multiply, I would have 2x times 7 and is equal to 4 times the quantity x plus 7. Let's distribute. Excuse me, or multiply. 2x times 7 is 14x. On this side, I would have 4x plus 28. Remember, get rid of your smaller coefficient, so that's why I got rid of the 4x by doing the opposite operation. 10x equals 28. If I divide both sides by 10, I would have x equals 2.8. Remember, cross multiply, so I have 6 times the quantity 1/2 x plus 8, and then 4 times the quantity x minus 5. As always with these problems, distribute. So if I do that, 6 times 1/2, or what's half of 6, you get 3x, plus 6 times 8 is 48, equals 4x minus 20. I would subtract 3x from both sides to give you 48 is equal to 1x minus 20. I then would add 20 to both sides to give you 68 is equal to 1x, and then divide both sides by 1, and you would have x equals 68, or 68 equals x. Alright, here we go to cross multiply, so I would have 7 times the quantity 1/5 x minus 10 equals 9 times the quantity I forgot my negative sign, negative 6 minus x. So if I distribute, I would then get 7/5 x minus 70 equals negative 54 minus 9x. I have a fraction. I don't like the fraction, so I'm going to multiply every single term by 5 to get rid of my fraction because that's what was in my denominator. So 7/5 times 5 would give me 7x minus 70 times 5 is 350 equals negative 54 times 5 is negative 270, and 9x times 5 is 45x. Now it's back to a problem you're used to doing. So I would add 45x to both sides. Those cancel, so I would have 52x minus 350 equals negative 270. Add your 350 to both sides. That would give you 52x equals 80. And then I would divide both sides by 52 because remember your ultimate goal is to get x by itself. If I take 80 divided by 52, I get roughly 1.5. I hope this helped you a bit more with solving equations. That was with our last unit. So if you have questions, make sure to ask your teacher. So here's our next problem that you all love with two different triangles. Remember, there's different ways to start the problem, but one way to start it is by thinking about taking your larger side over your smaller side. So your larger shape compared to your smaller shape. So let's say I just start with side length AB. So if I do that, I would have 7.5, and AB in my smaller shape is 2x minus 5. Then if I think about BC in my larger shape, which is 6.2, over BC in my smaller shape, which is 20 minus x. Now you set up your problem. So it's just like what we did on the previous page. You can cross multiply. So I would have 7.5 times the quantity 20 minus x equals 6.2 times the quantity 2x minus 5. I sort of squeezed it in there because I ran out of room. We are going to start to solve. So remember, your first step would be to distribute. So if I multiply 7.5 times all of that, I would get 150 minus 7.5x equals 12.4x minus 31. I'm going to add 7.5x to both sides. That would give me 150 equals 12.4 plus 7.5 gives me 19.9x minus 31. Get rid of your constant, so I would add 31 to both sides, which would give me 181 equals 19.9x. Remember, to get x by itself, I'm going to divide everything by 19.9. So roughly in this case, x is going to be 9.1. However, you are not done with a problem like this. You then have to go back in and plug 9.1 in for x for that side and 9.1 in for x on that side to get both lengths. So if I did that, I'll do it in a different color. Let's choose green. I would do for this side 2 times 9.1 minus 5. If I did that in my calculator, I would get 13.2. Down here, I would do 20 minus 9.1, which in this case is 10.9. So 10.9 and 13.2 would be your final answers, because I got the length of that whole side and that whole side. Make sure to ask your teacher if you have further questions. Okay, so for this problem, the first thing you must do is define your variable. So we're talking about consecutive even integers. So I'm going to say that x is equal to my first even integer. So if x is my first one and I need to write down 4, and if this problem confuses you still, think about 4 even integers. So let's just start off by saying 2, 4, 6, 8. To get from 2 to 4, I have to add 2. That's why my next integer would be x plus 2. To get from 2 to 6, I have to add 4. So my next integer would be x plus 4. And then finally, to get from 2 the whole way to 8, I have to add 6. So that's why I would do x plus 6. It says it's all equal to 20. So now I have my equation set up and I'm just going to solve it. If I combine my like terms, I would have 1x plus 1x plus 1x plus 1x. So I would have 4x plus, my constants would be 2 plus 4 plus 6, which gives me 12. Now it's just like your normal problem. I would subtract 12 from both sides to give me 4x equals 8 and divide both sides by 4. So in this case, x equals 2. Ironically, my first value is 2, because remember on the test then you have to write all of the integers. So the first 4 consecutive integers starting at 2 would be 2, then 4, 6, and 8. Ironically, it matched the ones that I gave at the beginning, but that will not always work. I just gave these values right here as an example on how to start setting up this problem. So for this next problem, if I define my variable, the question asks how many texts did he send in October. So that's how I'm going to define my variable. x is equal to the number of texts in October. So now we have to write our equation. He pays $40 plus 10 cents per text. So that would become 40 plus 0.10x, because it's 10 cents per text, equals $125.50. Just like before, we're going to solve the equation. So I'm going to subtract 40 from both sides to give me 0.10x is equal to 85.50. I would divide both sides by and divide by 10 over there, or 0.10, excuse me. So this would be x is equal to 855. So Hayden sends 855 texts in October. It's a lot of texts, Hayden. Okay, next one. Manny is reading a book that has 525 pages. So if I start to do this, he read 35 pages on Monday, X pages on Tuesday, and 78 pages on Wednesday. He is 3/5 of the way through the book. How many pages did he read on Tuesday? So that's how we are going to define my variable. X is equal to the number of pages read on Tuesday. So if we start to set up the problem, I would put 35, because that's how many he read on Monday, plus X, that's how many he read on Tuesday, plus 78 for how many he read on Wednesday, is equal to not just the total of 525, he is only 3/5 of the way full through it. So I would do 3/5 times 525. We're going to start to solve it. So if I combine my like terms, I would have x plus 113, and then 3/5 of 125, or excuse me, 3/5 of 525 is 315. I would subtract 113 from both sides. So x is equal to 202. And that is my answer. So on Tuesday, Manny had to have read 202 pages. Alright, for this next one, we're just talking about numbers, so that's how I would define my variable. It says what is the number, so x is equal to a number. So if we start to do this, a number increased by 7 would just mean x plus 7 is, remember, is equals 8 less than 5 times the number. Remember, when you see less than, that's the same as the term from. You're going to flip these. So instead of saying 8 minus 5x, we would say 5x minus 8. Now we're going to start to solve it. So I'll subtract x from both sides, and that would give me 7 equals 4x minus 8. I would then add 8 to both sides to give me 15 equals 4x, and I would divide both sides by 4. So 15 divided by 4 is 3.75. So my final answer would be 3.75. Let me erase that to fix this. So that's a 7. 3.75 is my answer for my number. So for this next problem, it asks how many biscuits did he eat? So in this case, x would be the number of biscuits That's how I would define my variable. And then I would start to write my equation. So it's a $10 entrance fee and $2.75 per biscuit, so plus 2.75x. And it's all going to be equal to $32. Now I'm just going to solve it like I normally would. So I would subtract 10 from both sides, because remember my job is to isolate the variable. So I have 2.75x is equal to 22, and then I would divide both sides by 2.75. So in this case, x would equal 8. So Diesel had 8 biscuits, basically. So for this problem, I have to find the measure of angle A. And remember, whenever we're finding for the angle measure and they are congruent, all we do is set the angles equal to one another and solve. So I would have 4x minus 12 is equal to 16x plus 60. So get my variables to one side. I would subtract 4x from both sides. Then I have a negative 12. Make sure you bring down that negative sign. Is equal to 12x plus 60. And then I would subtract 60 from both sides to give me negative 72 is equal to 12x. Divide both sides by 12. And in this case, I would get a negative 6. And I know technically that doesn't make sense in terms of this problem to get a negative angle degree, but in terms of this problem, just bear with me. So remember, once you get what x is, you are not done yet. Then you have to plug in for this equation, and you have to plug it into that one just to make sure it's the same. So I would have over here 4 times negative 6 minus 12. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24, minus 12 gives you a negative 36. And if we did this right, this angle which should also be negative 36. So I would do 16 times negative 6 plus 60. Well, 16 times negative 6 is negative 96 plus 60, and you get a negative 36. So remember, once you get what x is, in this case, you still have to plug it in to find out what the actual angle measure is. So this is going to conclude part 1 of our video for the review. The rest of it will be in part 2.